Welcome back to the Reality Guys. I'm your host Brian, along with my friend and guest Lou.
Hey guys, how you doing?
So Lou and I actually did we just reviewed season 8 on a previous endeavor a long time ago, and we also had like a little podcast together. So this is the first time Lou and I have done something in a long time. So super excited about it. We're hoping that he could be somewhat of a frequent guest on covering the show because we both love it a lot. And we actually got some requests to cover it, so that made me very happy. So Lou,
Hmm.
I'm super happy that you're here because I know you have thoughts. You always have very strong opinions, and I really think that our viewers actually might like your strong takes on some of the shows
Oh
that you.
yeah, I mean, I can't promise they'll always be the right takes, but I certainly feel like they are at the time when I'm making them. But happy to be back. Happy to be talking to you
Yeah,
about this because with our lives so busy, with you with the twins,
right, right.
it's
Yeah,
tough to sit down and talk like this. So I'm happy to be back.
for
Um,
sure.
you just want to jump right in on our thoughts on this season, which is
Yeah, and
of
yeah,
Alone, which is
and before we get started, I just want to say we all both watched the before the drop episode as well, so we might actually reference some of the things about like the training and how they learn about the land. But we're gonna talk mainly about episode 1, which is called Game On. And I'm actually gonna turn it over to you, Lou, because yeah, I know we were talking yesterday. We actually saw each other and we had some. And I want the people to know about your strong takes right off the bat.
right, right. So I have been watching Alone. Like you said, we started, I think season seven, we started actually watching it and then watched season eight. And then we went back because we loved the
Mm-hmm.
show so much and
Mm-hmm.
literally watched every season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the progress of watching season nine now. So don't hold me to anything that happened last season. But um, yeah, I'm really excited about this season so far. We got introduced to our first five half of the characters. Cade, Lee, Jody, Luke, and Alan. It seems like an older demographic
I agree. I
than we
agree.
usually are used to seeing. Like you said, I think Cade's the youngest at
28.
28, and then there's a couple of 30-year-olds, but mostly are in their 40s and 50s.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how the strain wears. Through. I mean, as we've seen the show progress, it's not. They went from like 2 weeks was like the winner to
Mhm.
Roland, who's still the champion in season
Right.
seven, 101 days or something like that.
Mhm.
So I think these contestants are prepared to be out there for months, 2, 3, 4 months at a time. Um, but yeah, so from what we saw yesterday, they mainly focused on the five uh,
That you
groups
mentioned.
or first five half of the cast.
Mhm.
We saw a lot of killing, a lot of successful hunting,
Yes.
um, and that happened. I think in season nine, the first episode had a lot of. I did watch the first episode. Had a lot of killing, which is always the most exciting part. Like that's
Mhm.
what I want all season. It's the most interesting thing because shelter after it's established, you can't really. It's interesting, but there's not really much you can do about that. After it's already settled.
It's only
Um,
interesting when it gets burned down.
right, right, right. um, so that gives me high hopes for a season. But Brian, you were saying you think it's a little false hope
Yeah,
there.
I actually think this is going to be false hope, and I don't know if it's editing because I don't know the time lapse. Like they kind of did it really. I thought it really the before the drop. I thought was super interesting, where they kind of explained like, hey, you need to that you. They learned about the cameras. They learned about like the hey, try to set up many as multiple angle shots as you can, and that the
Right,
other cameramen are just there to fill like time lapses and make it like kind of jump out to the viewer, which I thought was really cool. And I
right.
just think this is going to be false hope. I really do. That we're everyone's going to get super like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And by like season or episode 3 or 4, I think we're gonna have like 25 to 33% drop offs,
Right.
even
I mean,
50.
the fact that in my experience, from what I can recall, like it was someone's dropping out every episode,
Yeah.
and we didn't have that this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So usually, like, and I'm happy they did it actually because when we talked about this previously, we knew like, oh, if you're getting a lot of time in the
Yeah,
first two
exactly.
episodes,
You're
you're
gone.
gone because they got to use your footage
Yep.
and make the show, the 10 episodes need to be. But like, we knew if we saw a lot of you in the first two episodes, you're a likely candidate of being gone. But it
Yeah, I
seems
was just
like
gonna say that.
it seems like again with the reach of the show expanding the amount of quality candidates they're getting in, they're able to say, okay, we can spend more time with these people, not make it so like, oh, an elimination has to be shown every episode,
Hmm.
and follow these people more throughout the longer thing because they are able to survive longer. Like it seems like everyone has a background that at least benefits to what
Yeah.
they're saying,
Yeah, and I actually really
surviving
like
under.
when they pull candidates that have a strong background because it makes the eliminations more severe. Like they're only going to go out if something terrible happens. Like I remember some of them was like, "Oh, I think I'm having a heart attack, but I'm not sure," or like, "Oh, I
Right.
heard sounds in the woods and I'm out." And like I don't think unless like a bear comes in there because I didn't say this, but they're in northern Saskatchewan. There's 43,000 black bears, so there's going to be a lot of animal contact, which I really like because there's some seasons where it's like rare that they run across animals and things
Right.
like that. I really like you said, Lou, about the hunting. There's a couple people who are really here to kill a bear or a moose, and
Yeah.
those are
I
the things
mean,
that make the audience pop.
yeah, no, 100%. And like, I've been wanting a bear kill, I think, from when we first started talking about this.
Yeah.
Cause like, I know, well, from not to refer to other podcasts, but like things like Joe Rogan podcast, I know like people actually hunt bear. It's a viable food source,
Mhm.
and you can successfully take it down with a belt. I'm super excited. I mean, I think we had Cade, Lee, and Luke, I think, all coming out and saying like they're actively going
Yeah.
after these bears.
Yeah.
So super excited about that. I'm hoping we haven't seen it yet on because the risk reward ratio. I mean, you
Right.
don't hit like arrow is not going to do it. Like it can, but you have to have a perfect shot.
Yeah.
So
You need to like immobilize them, like hit a leg or like
immediately,
really
because
hit
like
them.
because if it turns and charges on you and like it can speak, I mean, if you hit an animal the wrong way with the bow, it will run off for miles. I mean, I think
Right.
we saw that with Roland,
Right.
who
That's yeah.
who who hit his ox with a bow, didn't hit a vital spot, and then had to hunt it down for a mile and take it out with a
Right.
knife.
Yeah, and that's the
So
calorie expense that they always refer to when they say that on the show. Like you don't you they're oh you got to follow this animal for a while, so you're it's not going to be near your shelter and it's going to be tough. And that's why it's not cold right now, so storing meat, dealing with especially black bears, a lot of predators.
right,
That it just is a different wrinkle that I'm really looking forward to. And I know you brought up the arrows, and
yeah,
I'm gonna jump around, but Cade, this is probably the ending of the episode that was I thought was interesting. It's like you can only bring 9 arrows, and he dropped his quiver, and that
yeah,
I actually thought he was gonna quit. Like he was
yeah.
battling, and that's the whole. I think that's the biggest demon of the show is your mental, you're in your brain.
Yeah,
Like
a
you're
hundred percent.
challenging the most, and he was battling with himself inside
Oh,
there.
I'm was in your boat. You hinted to this yesterday when we were talking about it, and when I saw it, I thought it was gone.
Mm,
Um, it's one of those things where it truly tells you about how realistic the show is, like how
yeah,
close to reality the show is, because these wilderness survivors who are like somewhat like experts in these fields, and we see it every season. There's always some person who loses like one of the 10 things they're allowed to bring, and it breaks
yeah,
because those things are so their line of comfort. They're like,
mm,
okay, as long as I have these things, I can survive out here. But
right,
like if you lose one of them, it's such a mental blow to them. They're like, oh
right,
fuck, like I can't survive out here now.
yeah,
So it shows
yeah,
how important these things are. And also like going off of that too, I was looking at it's so for those of you who don't know, on the site there's a lot of cool information, historychannel.com,
mm,
about the gear they're allowed to bring, the options they have, the basic gear that they all get. I was looking at the gear list that they've had for at least the first five contestants that they talked about in this episode, and all of them, like 70% of it, it's all the same thing. So it shows how like important
right,
each of those things are and like how necessary. Like there's a few variants. The biggest thing that it is like uh the cutting tools. So like some people will use a shovel, decide to have a shovel or an axe or a knife.
okay,
But it's not those things vary a lot. The
right,
one thing that I did notice is that Cade also, I think out of the five people that we are seeing today, there's I think Lee is my front runner in those five.
yeah. I do want to get to the well, finish
Yeah.
what you're saying, but because
Oh,
we're gonna go off on a
so
little tangent on Lee, but finish,
okay.
go.
So like everyone brings a cooking pot, everyone brings a sleeping bag, like fishing
Yep.
line, wire, like all that stuff the same. But like you really see like the two things that I thought were distinct is Cade decided to bring a bar of soap, which I think is like a waste.
Yeah.
Um, and then one thing that I think is underutilized that Luke brought was a block of salt, which I think is like
Yeah.
something that,
Store food.
yeah, well, store food. Well, it's not enough, I don't think, to store like massive amounts, but like keeping like a fish for one
Yeah.
day that certainly helps. But like even things like I guess there's a saying, hunger is the best seasoning. Like so, like if you're hungry, it doesn't really matter how things taste. But like even like something like maintaining your electrolytes and hydration, like
That's
that's
true.
something that's really important. You can't really find salt,
Right.
outside of a salt mine. I think that actually like as much as I have doubt because of like Luke's background, I think that actually like may come in very handy for him.
Yeah,
So
it's very possible.
yeah,
Was anybody? I feel like we didn't see anybody using Flint today or on that episode. I
no,
think they just don't focus on it as much anymore. That it's just
well,
such a staple, or they don't. Did they? People
yeah.
have.
I think one of the two things we might be saying here is one, so like a ferro rod, which is the flint and like the fire starter,
Mhm.
everyone did bring that. I think we're at a level now though
You
that
just get it.
you just in these conditions, like we said, it's not a harsh condition yet. So
Mhm.
like I do fully expect we're going to see one or two season changes here. Like I think they didn't specify, but I think like based on there was a couple of dudes taking their shirt off, jumping into the pond.
Yeah.
We're in we're in late spring, late summer, so I think
Hmm.
we're gonna definitely hit, fall and then definitely winter. I
Yeah.
mean, someone's definitely gonna make it to the harsh winter up there. And I think it gets cold quick. So we'll see when if the ferro rods, when like it's rainy, you can't, if
Hmm.
those things come into play. But I mean, everyone brought it. So it's definitely one of those things where it just might be a backup, at this point where
Yeah.
like in dire needs, you can't use the natural techniques that you can. But I think
Hmm.
everyone like a part of their audition videos that they showed for the drop episode. I mean, it showed everyone starting fire without a
Pretty
flint.
quick. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
just remember it used to be like a more major thing in the earlier
I mean,
seasons.
there was 3 seasons in a row where I think like someone lost their ferro rod and
It was done.
they're like,
Yeah.
I'm out. I can't start a fire. It's
I'll never
raining.
forget that one on the beach where the guy
Yeah.
like puts it down. He's like, I swear to God, I put it right here,
Yeah.
and he just
And
like
it's
loses it.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned Lee. Let's to wrap it up the episode. Let's talk about like the people we saw, like where you stand on who you think the favorite is, who you actually like.
Okay.
I really like Lee. I think he has the coolest story. I what he's winning for. I'm not, and I hate narratives in
Right.
shows and sports, but I think what he's doing it for, I think is super cool. He's like, I'm the only pilot in my town.
Yeah.
I have the plane. I need a better plane for the people, and I just think he lives in Alaska. He's kind
Right.
of like, and he lived in like isolation with his family. I just think he has, from what we saw episode one, he's definitely my number one like front runner
I
and
I
personal who I'm rooting for.
I 100% agree. I think a lot of these things come down to uh like like we said, the mental part of it. It's
Mhm.
not always skill. It's always like he seems the most equipped to that lifestyle. I mean,
Yeah,
and they hate to the drum, but like the king of this show, in my opinion, Roland. I
yeah,
mean, you knew
he
he
had
was
the
the
same
front runner
mentality.
because he was kind of in living the same lifestyle that he was on the show. So like
Right,
I
exactly.
think from what we saw or what was shown to us, Lee fits that the best.
Mhm.
But who never you never know.
Yeah,
Like you never know
you never
what's
know,
going to
but
go. A
episode
health
one for
something,
sure.
but yeah, I think he's the front runner. Um, Cade losing his bows and staying in, I think that's a good thing. I think, or sorry, his arrows. I think he might be able to salvage that though, like to make his own. There might
Yeah,
be
I
primitive
agree.
and not work as well, but he might be able to find a way around it. The fact that he was even willing to stay in is huge, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, that's a huge wear on your mental stability.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand. Yeah, I understand that losing arrows is bad, but I would
right,
think that you can make them. It's not like he lost his bow. Like if he lost his bow, he's
right.
screwed.
Right. I'm just thinking like he is a bow hunter. Like how much are you dependent on the technology?
Yeah,
Like
that's a good point.
making an arrow that flies straight that you can reasonably hit. I mean, and that was his whole game plan. Was he was going he's a big game bow hunter. Like he
Yeah.
wanted to take down big game. I wonder if he's like, there's no way I'm making a 30-yard shot with a homemade arrow that has to be aerodynamic and like.
Mhm.
So we'll
But
see. I mean, but he
yeah, let me say, but at the same time, if he's expecting to live there the entire time,
Right,
there's 9 arrows weren't going to be. He wasn't going to have those 9 arrows the entire time, only in a perfect situation. So at
right.
some point, he was going to have to use these arrows, but I don't. I think he can still find them. It's not
Yeah,
raining. It's not snowy. Like I
it
don't know
might
why these
be.
guys also don't have like a bright colored quiver or something on it,
Right,
or
right. Yeah, I
maybe it's
say,
to blend in. But I would stick out. I still think he's going to find it. I think like he will find the quiver. I
and
really do.
it's not like a single arrow he's looking for. Like he's looking for a pack of
Yeah, it's a big.
arrows.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
Yeah,
huge.
like I
I don't know
yeah.
how, but it's he. Can, I think he's gonna find it. I think this
I,
maybe not like this could be a season where we don't lose a lot of people right away, so they need to have drama, and this is
right,
maybe like a 2 day drama that, which I'm fine with. I think
right.
I enjoyed
I
it.
I, I agree. Next, uh, for
Yeah,
Luke,
who do you
I
not
think
like? Yeah, I'm curious to know who you do not like.
so. Well, there's no one that I don't like, but there's I think like problems with their background. Like so, Luke is from Hawaii, like
Mhm. Yeah,
um, which is very temperate climates, like warm all year round. I mean, a lot of fishing, a lot of easy food sources. Like the poverty level in Hawaii actually is for the locals is pretty low. Like most of them live like off the land or close to the land and like
hmm
pretty easy conditions because it's so easy to live there. So
right.
like when this winter rolls through, I wonder
Yeah,
how
he
his
might be
other
in trouble.
skills that how he's able to adapt with those. So there's a little bit of concern. I mean, he does claim to have like other expeditions and areas and stuff like that, like and gone on other trips and other wildlife experience. But I mean, just alone of you living off like alone, like minimalist in Hawaii is not the same
Yeah, it's not the
test that
same.
we're running in here, you know?
I think he said that he was from Idaho
Yeah,
originally, but again, if he lived there as a kid, that doesn't really matter.
right, right.
Yeah, he's lower on my list for sure of the people.
Right,
He did kill a grouse and like rip its head off, which I thought was kind
right.
of
I mean, yeah, awesome. And like I said, high kill. I mean, Cade, I think got a grouse real quick too. I am
he shot
still,
that thing in the head. He got a headshot. He
yeah.
hit
I
that thing
mean,
in the
he's good
neck
with
in
it.
his
Like,
neck.
yeah. I mean, he's good. Like,
Yeah.
like the fact that like again, the fact that he was able to stay and like say that he could get through this is huge.
hmm
Um, next for me is Jody, who I think we've seen this mistake a couple of times. Is focusing on her shelter first,
Too much.
and it may not be an issue this season because of the
How early do we think we
other.
dropped?
Well, yeah, like how early they think they dropped, how much food we were saying is around. You know,
hmm
it might not be a huge issue, but in the past, what we've seen is people who say, "I need to get my shelter first," especially in this warm weather, and expend
Yeah.
all these calories, and then the food situation doesn't work out. I mean, not to
Yeah.
say the shelter isn't important, but like if
You
you
can build
can't
it over
get your
time.
food, yeah, if you can't get your food, I mean, for me, if I was dropped in, making sure that I have some way to get food would be my number one, you know.
Do you think that because they talked about a farming accident, do you think that that could rear its ugly head at some point?
Um,
Like a slip
maybe,
on a rock and it's like,
yeah.
oh,
Oh, yeah, but I think that type of thing is
this narrative building.
well, not narrative building, but it definitely makes her more interesting. But I think one that if there was a significant increase in her being eliminated because of a pre-existing condition, they wouldn't have put her on the show,
That's
right?
true. You can always
I,
aggravate something. I'm just saying, like,
right, right. No, 100%. But I also think that so there might be like a slight chance that happens, and it might do her in eventually. But I think that risk of injury, of slipping and falling in this rough terrain is there for everyone, you know.
yeah, that's true.
But
Yeah,
you know, who knows? I don't know how true. Like, I mean, a lot of these guys are wilderness experts, but like they still live pretty modern, right? Like
yeah,
they have a bed.
exactly.
So who knows if her sleeping out in the cold on the
Yeah,
floor, hard
we still
dirt
didn't see
floor,
that much. She was probably the least of the five, I thought.
right, right. So we'll see, but that's the one thing that built up is like, yeah, putting putting too much energy in. I mean, they said
Mhm.
700 calories an hour before you catch any
You
source of
have any food?
protein
Yeah,
or fat. I mean, it's issues.
yep.
And and then last but not least is Allen, who I really am neutral on. I think he can go. You know, I think he's a mid. I think he's a mid tier guy.
Yeah, for now. Yeah, I don't know much
I
about
don't
him.
really know. Nothing really stood out to me for him. I do think his connection to his family, like and his family's life, is like a little bit stronger and than everyone else.
Hmm.
Um, so you might see him a couple weeks in start
Yeah,
saying, I want to go home. I miss
I
my
miss my
family type of
family. Yeah.
things. What
Yeah,
about
I mean,
you? I mean,
no,
outside
I
of
want to
your
comment on
opinion,
Alan. I want to comment on Alan. I love when they somebody catches a fish with a hand liner. I like fish
yeah,
on.
yeah.
I love it.
Well, I mean, he look, and he did catch, I
Mhm.
think what was it, two fish or something like that, or a
No,
fish?
Lee caught two. Lee caught
Yeah,
one with the rod that he made and the net, and Alan caught
yeah.
one. And he remember he was trying to eat the fish eggs and he
Row,
couldn't.
row.
And that
Yeah,
was a lot of fish eggs. I mean that's good stuff right there. And
yeah,
he's like the
yeah.
one that in the throwing up kind of.
Oh, yeah,
That to me was a worrisome sign because you got to be able to eat whatever you
yeah.
get, and
Oh,
that's like why I kind of have him in the mid tier as well.
100%. But again, like one of those things, like I don't know if like you've ever experienced this, but like if you ever like taste something and like, yeah, like I can take it or leave it, and then like if you're really starving and like haven't eaten all day, things do
That's
taste
true.
better. So I mean, we're 2 days in at this point. He
Hmm.
still has a lot of fat reserve, so I respect him for realizing that everything is
Hmm.
needed now. But yeah, him trying to gag down some fish roe is, I mean, it doesn't make you seem like the toughest survivor out there at this point.
Right. And one thing I will say about the fish is I'm surprised they didn't like talk about like you remember one time somebody ate his bad fish because they had like bacteria in it and they like
Right,
showed it and like he was cutting it and like how they pop up the little text and they're like,
right,
oh, this fish has bacteria in it. And it's like, uh-oh,
right, right,
he's in trouble. I'm surprised they didn't say anything. They did talk about the caribou.
right,
Cape is ready to shoot and he saw a caribou and he had the
right.
back off, which I thought was cool. And I always like knowing what's the no-nos, what they're not allowed
Yeah,
to do. But yeah, I love what I saw so far. I'm really interested to see the people that did request if they watch this. We want to know what your opinions on of the cast, and if you did watch the pre-show, what do you think on like like knowing about how much they are taught about the land? Because I think it makes it better for a viewer, like then when people stay at least a week instead of one
right,
day.
right, right. And like there's a lot of good information in that
Mm.
pre-show. So I always said like that was one of the things that I wanted to always have before the seasons because they usually didn't
It was at
release
the
that.
end.
Yeah, it was at the very end, but it's a really good intro to everyone, kind of their backgrounds, and then also
Mm.
the area that they're going to
Yep.
be, living in, what's available to them. So check that out if you have time. It does, I think, add some color and light to the show. So
Sure, for sure. Yeah, so I'm hoping Lou will be back for future episodes because,
anytime, man,
like I
anytime.
said in the pre-show or when I said in the beginning of the show, Lou loves the show, and when he has
Yeah,
opinions, he's got opinions. Make sure to check out everything else that we cover. We have obviously Vanderpump Rules is big going on right now. We have Bachelor coming back. We have Claim to Fame coming back. We are doing Stars on Mars. We have Challenge coming back. So many shows. I do a Love Island show every single day. But I want to thank Lou for coming on, and I think he will be back again. So for myself and Lou, thanks for watching. See
thanks
ya.
for watching, guys. See you later.